Hey, everybody.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another live stream.
My name's Sam.
I'm Wes.
And today we're going to go over some VR multiplayer game that we put together on our Epic Friday. We're going to go over some Gear VR action with the multiplayer game. And then we're going to break it into a Q&A of just basic. We got some questions already here, and any questions you guys have in the chat, just go ahead and throw them in there. Now, before we get started, this particular project is to show multiplayer happening with VR. We have encountered a few errors trying to get everything working this morning, so we're going to try to work around that stuff and show you guys where we've had some stumbling blocks, where we haven't been able to figure out the right course of action for us to get some things working. So we've got everything working. We've tested it with 2 headsets. Now it's doing the fine tweaking and things like that, which is where 90% of dev work actually happens, in tweaking the settings and things like that. So you guys are going to see a raw, basically, how we've got this far, and then we'll do a little live debugging. Is there anything you
Yeah, I guess I should add to this that what you're going to see is kind of a precursor to something that we're working on internally. We aim to have some video series, tutorials that will kind of break these down into smaller steps so that you can kind of review and see how we put everything together, because there's a lot to tackle. So we're not necessarily going to tackle everything in this live stream, but we're going to show you kind of a glimpse at what we're working on and how we're going to correlate that into some training tutorials for you guys as well. So there's a couple projects that we're going to be looking at. As Sam mentioned, the first that we're going to look at is kind of a VR and multiplayer setup. The second project that we're going to take a look at is mostly geared towards the front end setup of multiplayer. I know you guys have had a lot of questions about how do I set up multiplayer from the front end perspective, connecting to servers, finding servers and joining, etc. So we're going to jump into a project that's a little bit further along and show you that project. And again, that's what we're going to release down the road here as a video tutorial series. So with that, is there any questions right off the bat you think we could tackle before we get in, or you just want to show the project, what we have so far?
So here's one. It's the first question on the list, basically. Is there any reference project or resource around showing how to set up a menu system in VR projects?
Well,
there's got to be.
Yeah, there will be. Let's see, it says...
They're talking about 3D menus. Basically, they'd be interested in the way to animate objects, zooming in to find the selected animated object. One thing you've got to be really careful with when making your menus inside of VR is staying away from super fancy zoom-ins or things that fly in from the side. You really have to think about or treat VR. You really need to treat menus in VR as if they were actual signage in the real world, or people are going to immediately have this disconnect between all of a sudden this thing slid in, but basically it slid in over your eyeball versus a sign that you would see in the real world. Like something like on the bottom. Something like on the bottom of this. This is going to be your UI. You're not going to pick it up and a little display is going to come out. It's going to be like, whoa, okay, I see that, this has got a number on it, and I need that number to do something else within the game. You really have to start thinking of UI more in terms of how is this going to be in my virtual world as a real virtual world object, instead of something that actually comes up and is displayed on your face or something like that. It's just VR menus do not work like that.
Yeah, to add to Sam's point, a lot of UI stuff that I personally have been experimenting with is in the form of the widget components and 3D widgets. We're going to kind of get into an example here. I believe there was a question as well talking about the 2 different examples versus like a 2D, like a plane in 3D world space versus an actual 3D object that you can walk around and see in 3 dimensions. I believe there's a forum thread on this, actually. One of the users is creating that type of scenario. What we're going to be talking about is basically the widget component and placing that inside of your 3D world. So seeing that as on a 2D plane inside of your 3D world. So not necessarily something that you can walk around, but something that you can look up and down and kind of see in VR space. So we're going to get to that in a moment as well. But back to the zooming question as part of that first question there. And this kind of ties into the other question as far as, where was it? If you scroll down just a little bit, it was... event gaze enter. So
Oh,
I'd like to
I was
highlight
I was just
something.
reading that one.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight something by
this
looking
one
at
right
it.
here, yeah.
I just saw this question and I was thinking about myself how I would approach this. You could probably approach this similar to if you were setting it up for like a first person perspective, just running a trace from your view perspective.
That's what I was
So
thinking.
from your VR, from the HMD, just a trace from that line of sight, because you probably wouldn't want to have your zooming and stuff, especially with VR, taking place while the player is looking all around. So you want to make sure that they're looking at the thing that you want to zoom in on, and once the trace goes over that object, that's when you would zoom in. And then you could set up, the animation just as you would with any other UMG setup, and have it zoom or kind of shear or whatever you want.
To add to that, be careful when you have something zoom. Don't, especially in VR, do not ever take the control away from the player. If you need the player to zoom in on something, you can, by all means, have them zoom in, but you need to give them a little bit of a, press B to zoom in, or something along those lines, because the minute you start taking control away from the camera, it'd be like if I took Wes's head and I started rotating it this way or that way. That's super annoying, and it doesn't really... That's basically what you're doing in VR when you do something like that, is you're literally taking the player's head and you're moving it this way, you're moving it that way, and think about how annoying that is in the real world. Well, it's just as equally annoying in VR as well. So stay away from doing things for the player and allow the player to do things for themselves.
Okay, so I think we answered those two questions in one there. Let's see, let's see, experiencing a few issues. I don't think
So there's one here about discussing networking between mobile Gear VR and desktop VR clients, and this is something we were actually just trying to get to work. We've got everything to launch. The problem is, though, and I think we're going to try to get this after the stream. We just ran out of time today. We have everything set up. Everything can see one another, or we can get into servers. The problem is that we can't see from when I do on my Gear to my DK. And we think the problem is the fact that this guy is on the wireless network, and then this guy is on the wired network. So there could be some inconsistencies with that type of network setup. So that's something we're going to look into. And as soon as we get that figured out, again, we're going to be releasing this in a project for you guys, to take apart and to add to your projects and things like that. So, we're just like you guys. Sometimes, unfortunately, things just we know how to work them out, and then we get some problems that we didn't even think that would become a problem in the first place. Like, everything works. We can connect two desktop computers together. The only difference is, again, the desktop computer is on the wired network, the Gear VR is on the wireless. That's the only thing that's not working. So this is kind of a little bit of how we troubleshoot things as well.
with that, I guess we can, speaking of the project, we can kind of jump in and
yeah. Let's go ahead and jump in. So Wes is going to drive. Wes is the blueprint wizard on this one.
You want to talk about, before we jump in, what we're actually going to see here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and
kind of give a general synopsis of our project.
Let's show what's going on here.
So let's hit Shift F1, get control. There we go.
All right, now you try it first. We were having some problems getting our two Xbox 360 controllers to work together, and we almost had it working.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like you still have control, or do I have control?
No, you were controlling it. I wasn't touching it.
All right.
Now you have control over them both.
Try now. Okay.
All right, should I do a quick match?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to load in a quick match.
So there we go.
All right, now he's going to find a match. And I'm going to position myself so I can totally spawn kill him when he comes in.
So what are we looking at here, Sam? We're looking at two dragonflies flying around shooting each other.
Yep, basically. So this is a VR game. Its working title is called Dragonflyers, and basically it's going to be a 4-player, multiplayer VR experience where you fly these little dragonflies around the world, and you shoot at the other players. If you can see down here on the ground, I kind of suck at flying.
Fly over there. Look at my screen.
Yeah, if you can look at Wes's screen right there, you'll see these little boxes with numbers in them. Basically, there's gonna be some fruit set up around the level, and what you have to do is fly around, try to get these boxes, try to capture the fruit while the other player. There we go. I'm shooting him. yes, yes.
You're killing me.
I'm killing him. You're killing me, Smalls. So basically, you fly around the level trying to collect the fruit. Whoever gets the highest score at the end of X amount of time will be the winner. And that's pretty much it. It's just a. I was watching, I think it was like Game of Thrones or something. I was like, how cool would it be to fly dragons around? And then I was like, well, I can't model a dragon, but we have this Dragonfly model. And I was like, hey, Wes, you want to help? You want to help me out with a VR project? And he was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it on Epic Friday. So
this is 1 day's
this
work.
is one day's worth of work here. The Dragonfly came from the one of our old post-processing settings, and I think he killed me.
I did.
While I was trying to explain, came from the post-processing example, and basically I took it from like 25,000 vertices down to 4 using the online Simpligon tool for animated models. So I could reduce the poly count, but still keep the textures and the smoothing groups and all that stuff. So if you haven't checked that out, that was a pretty cool little thing that I did to basically take this completely animated model, remove all the unneeded vertices that I need, and he would still work with the animations that we have him with. Oh!
So let's actually talk about some of the other things here that we're going to see
right.
too. So let me close this out and make one quick change. So we're going to go down to this blueprint here. Again, this is not necessarily a walkthrough. We'll cover some of these blueprints here in a second, but just going to show you one more thing. Sam's going to pop on the Oculus here so you can see this in VR. So what we were doing a minute ago, we were shooting each other, but we were shooting each other not necessarily from the perspective of the Oculus here. So when we hook up the Oculus, we're going to hook this section of script up here so that wherever Sam looks, that's where he's going to shoot. So I'm just going to kill this little bit of script here real quick.
Am I supposed to see nothing but darkness?
Yeah, right now you're supposed to see nothing but
darkness. I was just checking. Hello, darkness.
My old friend. You serve him up, Sam. I will knock him down.
Okay.
Let's compile and let's save this. So what we've done is now we're getting the camera manager, we're getting the camera location and camera rotation. In the event graph here, we've set it up to follow the HMD orientation. So with all of that, with all of that, if we actually close this and we do a standalone version.
You probably might have to hit Alt-Enter to make it go into to VR mode.
And this is not going to be in the multiplayer perspective here because we're doing this on one machine. Had we had multiple machines to kind of display this, we could have 2 Oculus players at the same time, which we were able to test at our desk.
Yes, we have tested that both Oculus players do work at the same time. We've tested this multiple times. I gave myself motion sickness because I couldn't turn fast enough.
Let's go ahead and hit Alt-Enter on that. Set you up.
Sorry, though.
Should take a second.
Oculus is messing with my mic here. Oh, there we go.
You see it?
I see the I see the Oculus positioning screen.
Oh, go ahead and hit enter on that. Actually, let me get that back up for you. Oh, that killed it, didn't it?
Yeah,
there we go.
There we go.
So go ahead and hit like. Let me probably help if I gave you the controller there. So go ahead and hit like right or something.
Oh, there we go.
That.
So, can they see the screen?
Yeah, they can see it. Hit any key to get rid of. There you go. So this is the whole perspective. Now try and look and shoot. So there you go. So now you can like look wherever you want. And this is going to be the end goal of what we want to try to do. You're disconnected from your Dragonfly there, but.
Well, yeah. You're going to be, if you can't see what's going on the screen, basically you're going to be sitting on the back of the Dragonfly, kind of like in a saddle or something like that. So. Like I said, we were having a lot of issues getting everything to work correctly.
Hit the back button. Does that center you up, or D-pad left?
No, that's not working. I think we disabled that to try to get the other thing working.
That should have worked.
So we're just a little slightly offset. But the main point here is that as I look around where I look, you can see the bullets are coming out basically in the center of my my headset here.
So that kind of gets to that point that we were talking about a minute ago. If you wanted to set up something where you're looking at something to have it zoom in, you could do something like this to kind of get the location of where you're looking and then run a trace from there. And if it hits that object, that's when you could start your animation. So I don't know why you're off the thing there. Let me go ahead and disconnect you and try again.
You know what? I know why I'm off.
Because your camera's
all the way over there. So yeah,
You can't see me right now, so I'm just giving him a clap.
that just dawned on me that the tracking camera is all the way over there. One of the other, whoops, and I have lost my mic here.
There you go. Yeah, okay.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys and gals. There we go. Sorry about that. What I was going to say, one of the other things we were testing with this is we were using this, the DK2, purely as just orientation and not with the head tracking. I think that's one of the things that we were.
Yeah.
We again, like I said, we were trying to get everything ready for you guys to make sure that we could give you the best stream possible. So we had to kind of lop some things off to make sure that other things would work in the manner that they did. But again, that's what you get when you work with some bleeding edge tech there. So
I'm gonna go ahead and kill this.
okay,
Start this again.
yeah,
Wanna
that
hit Alt Enter for me.
yeah, sure. It should be a little bit better now that he's sitting in front of the the tracking camera.
Yeah, that would probably help. Hit Alt Enter. There you go.
Did it take it?
Yeah, you got to minimize it and then bring it back up. That's what I've been doing to get it to. Should give it a second. You just killed it. Bless you.
Bless you.
So go ahead and hit the.
Which one's the any key?
Your controller has it. There you go.
Oh, okay. There
So
you
go ahead and fly. You want to fly?
okay.
I'll hold this. So fly towards the menu there. So what we're looking at here is that 2D menu in 3D space. So can you not fly? Do I have control?
Did we lose control? Hold on.
Nope. I have.
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's on this one.
Okay, here we go.
So this is the type of menu that we were talking about. So it's actually a 2D menu. You could fly to like the side of it, and you would end up, not seeing it in 3D space. You'd actually see the back side of it, which we could actually disable as well. But we've created a 3D widget so that you could see this in UMG, and then control it with our controller here. Sam, this is really hard doing this.
I know, it's really hard doing it without the headset on.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit about that, how that was set up real quick.
It's so hard to do.
All right, let's go ahead and kill that.
Okay.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Oh, okay.
Don't kill it. Don't kill it. Don't kill it. So there's also, speaking of 3D widgets, if you can kind of see on our screen there, we've also added a health bar. And fly over to the right a little bit, Sam. There you go. Oh, maybe you can't see it from here.
It might be hard to see because of the positioning of the camera.
If you fly into the level a little bit. Back
Come
into
on.
the thing.
Come on,
Go
little
ahead and
buddy.
just hit quick match. Hit A. There you go.
All right, yeah.
So the points aren't
Oh,
displaying.
no, it's because we're not connected to a server.
Oh, that's why.
So the other thing that we have up
Yeah.
on the Dragonfly's head is to the left is going to be your health bar, to the right is going to be your
Like your
your
score.
score. Oh, there it is. Nope, never mind. I was
can
wrong.
see it. Yeah, I
was
can
there.
see it in
There we
here.
go. There we go.
So then maybe this will help if I do it like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So again, and this is something that Wes and I have been going back and forth because at first we were going to put this as an element in the HUD, but UMG does not work with
Yeah.
VR. So the first time we did it, it
We're
only
like,
showed up in
oh,
one eye.
yeah, that wasn't working
and then
well.
we were like, oh wait, duh, we should actually attach it somewhere in the world. We're going back and forth on whether we're going to put it like, I'd like to put it somehow incorporated like into the saddle that we put on the Dragonfly. Like, like some type of digital readout or something like that, again, because it needs to be grounded or attached to something in the
Right.
world to make it more believable, make it just feel like a more cohesive experience.
Right, and that was one of the samples. I believe one of the users had posted of using 3D widgets. The text that you see is actually attached to like a floating computer monitor or something like that. So the text is actually still in 2D, but you have some kind of 3D element that gives it that 3D feeling. So that's probably the way that we would tackle something like this.
Yeah, and you can also do stuff with like layering of your static meshes and then using like the bump offset node to add some parallax to do exactly what Wes said is you have your 2D interface on a 3D console, but when you look at it, it's got some depth to it. You can push the textures back. It's all about giving people depth, the depth cue that you would normally lose if you were to put that again, like right on their main menu or basically right on their eye, as you would play like a regular 2D game or a regular game that was done on a 2D monitor. That's what I
Right.
mean.
So what we're going to take a look at real quick is just that main menu. It was just set up inside of UMG. If I could find the actual main menu actor. There it is. So we just created a simple interface here inside of UMG. It just has all of our elements that we want. Now, typically when you're working in UMG, you would create it, and then inside of your player controller or your character, you would add to viewport. You would create the widget and then add it to viewport. We're not actually adding it to the viewport. We're spawning it as a component of an actor. So that's what we're doing instead of adding to viewport. And that actor is where we have all the logic for controlling the menus, etc. What happens when you click on each. Can I move that over for real? There we go. That's as far as I can move that over. What?
What? Okay.
So that's new. So yeah, here is we're creating the widget. Typically you would add to viewport at this point, but we're just creating a reference to it so that we can access it later so we know which widget is created. And then we have all the script here for enabling input. And then we also use some event dispatchers to determine the button clicks because we are using the controller to actually manipulate the menu instead of the mouse. So if you've worked with UMG so far and you've used the mouse for mouse over events to highlight buttons, if we play real quick in the editor here, real quick, pop this up. So if Sam presses down,
Wait, I'm going to figure out.
White controller, you can probably unplug one of those now. Don't need it.
Are you clicked on the window?
Go for it. No?
It seems that both of our...
Wait, I know what it is. Hold on. Get the server menu, that's why. That's the other thing that we were working out.
There we go.
Other thing we were working out. So right now, we are highlighting the options via the controller. Typically, what you would do is you can kind of still see it here because I haven't disabled this yet for debugging. But as I mouse over something, you highlight something with the mouse. But we had to set up a system so that we can control it with the controller and still highlight the menu options.
Yeah, because we've got our Samsung Gear VR controller here, and there's no, I got into the match and I'm like, okay, let's, nothing is selectable.
So I was using event dispatchers for that to determine when the player is moving over the object or moving over the menu option when they press a button, calling an event dispatcher. And that would actually allow us to click on the button per se. And then we were using a switch on int here to determine which button should be highlighted. And this is something that's a little bit messy right here, but we're going to break this down into a video series so that it's more digestible for you guys.
And I just saw a question pop up, which is a little relevant to another reason why we're doing this project. And the question is a project generally VR exclusive, or can you have some clients in VR and some using prehistoric flat screens? That's the whole reason why I wanted to read this question.
Yeah.
Do the non-VR clients have the extra overhead? That's actually one of the other things we're going to do with this project is the VR headset is a augmentation to this, meaning that you could play this game, you could do the full experience without using the VR headset and still have the same experience as somebody who had a VR headset on. The only difference is the person who has the VR headset on is going to be able to look to the left a little bit more, look to the right. They're going to be able to spin around a little quicker than maybe you'd be able to get around. As for the overhead, if you are not running VR, if you don't have the headset enabled, Unreal is not going to be rendering that extra output. So it doesn't really matter. Unreal looks at it and says, oh, you've got the head-mounted display. Yeah. Let me make 2 copies of my render targets, one for the left eye, one for the right eye. Again, that's been very watered down right there. But basically, that's what's going to happen, right? When you just have a regular monitor, it says, hey, I'm just a monitor. I just need 1 copy of the render target. Boom, let's display that.
And that's something that we've also already tested as well before we even did the Oculus to Oculus.
Oh, yeah. So when we first started this, basically I was doing the art, and then Wes got the, like an hour or 2 later, Wes had the networking ready to go, and he's like, dude, check out my developer folder. I downloaded it, I launched it, we were able to connect, and I mean, it was an hour's worth of work, 2 hours at the most, which I thought was really super impressive because he got it up and running, and I had just barely gotten the character to polycrunch, and I was still working on his materials at the time. So he was able to get quite a bit of work done, and the limited amount of time, I was like, geez, man, he's making me look bad.
There's still obviously some issues with it, but the more time that we have to spend on it, the more we can polish it up for you guys. And speaking to that, when we jump into this project here that we'll show in a moment, you'll see the steps, the directions that we want to take in terms of providing you with an all-in-one, I guess, tutorial on how to set up multiplayer games from the front end perspective all the way into actual gameplay. So that is what's coming, and that's our ultimate end goal. So actually, do you want to, let's see. Is there anything else you want to talk about this project specifically before we jump into the other one?
Not really. When we get back to our desk after this stream is over, we're stealing somebody's laptop and we're gonna try. We're gonna try to get this gear thing working for you guys so we can get some gear VR multiplayer. Because we had it working, it just I don't know what happened. I had to go to SIGGRAPH, so I missed one of the Epic Fridays, and then yeah. So we will get it working because I wanted to get it working, and I probably won't get too much sleep tonight until I get it working. It's going to bug the bejesus out of me until it starts to work. So now this project that Wes is showing now, I had nothing to do with. I'm just his like, Sam, come test this. So I test it all the time. But if any of you are familiar with one of our favorite games, Left 4 Dead, you are about to see something that will give you a very, very cool Left 4 Dead vibe. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to steal too much of Wes's thunder.
Wait, let's actually make sure that our windows are set to the best size here so we don't have windows all over the place.
That's good. I had windows everywhere.
Yeah. So just going to change the window size and open up some players here. So we'll say 3 players. So this is the multiplayer front end and lobby and chat and all that setup here. This is the series that I want to break down into this is the project that I want to break down into a video series for you guys so that you guys can walk through this. We already have the multiplayer shootout. If you guys are familiar with that project, if you aren't, I highly suggest that you check that out in the meantime off the marketplace. It's available for free. It is a project that is set up for multiplayer and you can connect to each other, but I wanted to take it a step further and break that down and walk through the process together so that we can set that up. I know a lot of you guys have been asking, well, here's the project, but how do I actually break this down and set it up? So that's what this project is going to be. So let's just run through this really quickly here.
Alexander had 1,900 unread emails.
Thanks for that, by the way. So what we're looking at here is just the simple front end, kind of what you saw a minute ago. But what we're going to do with this is all done in mouse and keyboard right now, but I'll set it up so that you can do it with controllers as well and touch. But
I don't know if you noticed that menu does look very, very familiar. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
So here's our front end. We can hit the options, and there's a little options menu in here, so you can actually enter a player name. Our window is super small, so I gotta fix that. But you can enter a player name here. So my player name is, I go by the name Dizzy. And we have some avatars. These are some fancy avatars. These are just my test avatars.
Look at that brick wall. Look at that mask action you got going
so hard,
on.
dude. I'm like a brick wall, dude. When I get you, that's what it is. So, anyways, these are just some sample textures that came, with the creation of the project. But feel free to add your own to these. This will show you when we set this up together. We'll show you how you can populate this, and then you can populate it with whatever textures that you want. Hopefully, better than mine. So you can pick one of these, and then you can hit accept. You can go back into your options menu, and it takes, well, it didn't actually take that one there. Did I hit accept on it? Should have. Let's see. Did that time. Oh, I guess I picked that one. So yeah, it should accept. And once you've entered your player options in your avatar, you can hit escape, and then you can host a game. And this is a little bit different than the multiplayer shootout. So in the multiplayer shootout, you host a game, and then other clients can connect to you. Here we're going to actually allow you to enter a server name, specify the number of players, determine if it's LAN or
And this is more like an old school, Counter-Strike or old school Battlefield, 1942 or Battlefield 2 or a 2142 style server interface, which some of us old school players like way more than the newer ones. But,
So you can enter a server name and say, my happy server. Specify the number of players, and they're capped. You can change this cap if you'd like, but let's say 3 for now because we have 3 windows up. And
and we do have we're choosing LAN now. Just it's a little bit easier, but you can also choose between LAN or World Wide Web.
Yes.
They both work. It's just LAN is easier to get to connect since we're in the building. It's just it takes one set of details out of there, so we can worry about not have to worry about so much stuff.
So there's a lot of placeholder stuff here right now. You can see the server name that I entered has carried over into our new map here. We have a brand new map. There's a character in here now. We have a list on the right that contains all the connected players. So it's just myself right now. It has my name, has the avatar that I selected, has a level, which I'd like to turn into like some experience that you can carry over from match to match. This little icon here will represent like the player that you can select to use. So this is your personal avatar. This is the characters that you can select from the game. You can actually hit this option here and select a character. It'll pop up a menu. You can pick the different characters. You can pick the bad guys, I named them. So it doesn't actually change anything yet because I haven't got that far, but that eventually when this video series is complete, all of this will be updated with the final images and so forth. So if I go to my other windows here, I can find a match on this one. I can toggle between LAN and internet games. I can refresh. This should look very similar to the multiplayer shootout, except I've added a status, so we're now in the lobby. It has the number of players. The server name isn't carrying through just yet here, so I need to get with Ryan on our team here to kind of figure out why that is and how I could do that. I'd actually like to have an option, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but maybe I can get some push behind me here on the create session node to have a pin right there that you can actually enter your server name so it just carries over, because there's a bit of trickiness that I've discovered to just get the server name that I've entered.
Wes has been working on getting all this stuff working for the last...
I think it would be nice to have that on the create session, just boom, server name right there, and then it carries over when it creates the session as part of your blueprint.
That would be cool.
Session nodes, that would just be right there. So I can connect with this guy now, and he connects. You can see he's also connected. He's also using the same name because I didn't actually change that. So if I go in here and change this to, say, Sam, you're going to jump in here. Use something different, like this ring. Let's see if that actually took. Yep, Sam.
Sweet.
And I go find match. And let's connect real quick.
And we got to wait for it.
So 2 of 3, we're all in the lobby. I connect.
Check out that ping.
All 3 of us are here. Now you can see Sam's information is displayed. Right now I'm using save files, so it's pulling from my local machine, my local save file. When you have connected each individual machines, you'll save locally and then upload that information to the server. So it's just pulling from my local save file. That's why that second character was named like it is. So you can see here the server actually has additional options than the client machines. So the server has the ability to go into game settings and kick players and change maps, etc. Those options are hidden from the client, so we'll show you how to set that up. These characters can also select different characters. Again, if you're familiar with Left 4 Dead or any of those types of games, this should look very familiar. Once you select a character, then that option would go away. So I'm going to work on setting that up as well. We also have the chat window here, so this is actually working. So Sam can type, and it appears on all the client machines and the server. Client can actually type as well, except it's going to be pulling from the save file again, so it's going to say Dizzy again. Why did you type that? So, but you can see that the text is being replicated, so we'll show you how to set this up. If you wanted to see how to set up a chat system, this will be part of this tutorial series as well. Once we're all happy, right now the ready button isn't working, but the server can launch the game at any time. I'd also like to include a countdown, so like when the server clicks start game, you get a little bit of a warning before the game actually kicks in. But server travels and takes all the clients with them, so that when the game loads up, now all 3 characters are inside the game together. And there'll be a little bit that I'll do inside of here, maybe just like a simple death match so that you can shoot each other and kill each other, and then once a score is met, the game will reset and kick you all back to the lobby. But you can kind of see the direction that we're going, and this is the tutorial series that I'd like to put out there for you guys.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So let me get out of here.
Aww.
Let me close that. So there's quite a bit involved in here. We're not actually going to tackle all of this inside of this training stream here, as we mentioned. But very quickly, if I go to the blueprints folder, so most of my information is being stored in the game instance. The game instance is the one type of blueprint that is consistent across all maps and levels. So whenever you change maps or levels, I guess they're the same thing. When you change level, the game instance will stay up. That is the only thing that will stay up. Game modes will get reset whenever you go into new levels as well. So I do a lot of stuff in here. Also do a lot of stuff inside of the player controller and player states as well. So if I go into like characters, gameplay. So I have different game modes for different, if you're in the lobby versus gameplay versus main menu, etc. So we're going to break this down in the video series. Again, I don't want to go too much in depth to it here, but kind of wanted to give you a sneak peek on where we're going. So
let's see, we talked about our VR, we talked about our menus. when we get some more some more solid stuff on VR, we'll have another video series or training stream about it. And again, this isn't the final thing. This is a first and a very long set of stuff that Wes and I have been talking about for months now, and we're finally getting the time to actually get all this stuff together and get it out there for you guys. So if we hadn't answered your particular question, now, don't worry, we will get to it. We will get to it. So let's kick over to see if we've gotten some questions over here, because it looks like the list is growing a little bit.
Possible use of widgets on menus on their own depth buffer. Use a custom depth. Custom depth buffer. That's a good question. So the question is, would it be possible to use widgets for menus on their own depth buffer without having to use your own custom depth buffer? Would this be possible at some point, as it is important to games to utilize
the custom depth buffer?
So I'm not sure. This is something I think that Nick was looking into. I know that he has still...
Which Nick? Darnell?
Nick Darnell, yeah. Okay. I know there's a lot of other things on his plate. This is something, if this is not on Answer Hub, I would definitely get it on there, or if it's on the forums in its own separate thread. Nick is very good about getting on the forums. He might be able to provide a timeline on this, or if it's something that he's still considering or what. But that's definitely a feasible option, I would think.
We got any more questions underneath that one? I can't tell because
scroll.
The things. Yeah, it looks like we got a few on there.
Can you play the field to focus players' attention, or should that be avoided? So it says, can you play depth of field to focus players' attention, or should that be avoided as well?
If this is talking about something that's in VR, you should avoid that. Depth of field is not something that necessarily exists on your eyes, and in the sense that you think depth of field is on a camera, right? You do have depth of field on your eyes, but not as intense as you do with a cinematic camera or a photography camera or something like that. I would say stay away from it. But this is the beauty thing about VR, right? I used to think having a third player character in VR is a great way to induce simulation sickness. Till I played something that had a third person character in it, and I noticed that, hey, you know what? Simulation sickness wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that's something that I read from the Oculus documentation a long time ago. And again, since VR is so new, they do a lot of research on the things you should and shouldn't do. Using depth of field is one of the things they said that you shouldn't do. However, since this is so new, it might be something that in the right instances, in the right particular cases, depth of field might be something that works. In order to figure this out, though, you have to thoroughly test everything, which is the hardest part.
I would say that the long answer was that. The short answer is test it, try it and see. That's the best way. Coming from my background, the best way to test things is to get it in the editor, play it, test it, see how it feels, get other people to test it, give you feedback.
That's actually brings me up another good point. When you're developing for VR, you will very, very, very quickly become desensitized to VR. Give this stuff to your mom, give it to your girlfriend, give it to that nice coworker at work that knows nothing about technology. Have her put it on. Have them practice your game, play with it, see how simulation sickness gets induced on them. If it does, if it doesn't, at least you can know you're going in the right direction. But remember, you are your own worst enemy when it comes to this, because you have been desensitized to VR because you use it so much.
You get
right?
so close to it. The more you look at it, the closer you are to it, the more it becomes abstract to you. So. Let's see. Was there any other ones? So it says, will UMG, there's a question, will UMG ever utilize a built-in trace from the HMD perspective to act as a model to fire the widget events? So this is kind of what we were just talking about, running a trace from it. To have that as a built-in function would be awesome. So cookie for you. Just put that on the forums, put that on the Answer Hub. It's not something I can directly say yes or no right now, but I think it's an excellent idea.
Do you know the status? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you know the status of Oculus support on Mac? Does 4.9 still support it with the old 5.0 runtime? So Oculus has stopped support for the Mac. I haven't tried 4.9 with the 0.5 runtime, so I can't tell you if it works or if it doesn't work. You're going to have to test it for yourself, but they have not. They've said moving forward they're not going to be supporting Mac. So unfortunately, there's not a lot that we here at Epic can do about that, because that is all on them. We still support the Mac. We've got a bunch of new stuff coming through for tutorials with, Match 3 and things of that. That's going to be Android, Mac, PC, possibly browser. I mean, we're trying to get everything on that particular one. So, while there's one thing that, is not there anymore, support for VR is not there anymore, we are picking up where we can to make sure that Mac is a fully supported first-class system there. So I'm sorry for that, but again, that's not really something that we had too much control over.
There's a highlighted question on there that's pretty
What, you talking about that one?
detailed, yeah.
That-
Yeah, this is, I'll ask the question, but that's not something I can necessarily answer here. It's a question that I could dig into if you post it on the forums. Did you respond to that? I think you did. Is that your comment to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, someone's in need of a map interface, which will be displayed in the 2 o'clock position around the player, with 12 o'clock being straight ahead, 3 o'clock being to the right. The map
Clock will be over
itself
there.
will need to be a 2D map with fog of war, where the player has been. The fog of war has been removed. The map will show the notable location. So they're looking for like a mini map, I guess. Also, the player should be able to
okay.
share that information with other players, so they will be able to ping locations on it.
So it's like the map and WoW kind of.
Kind of, but yeah, could you do that in WoW? Could you
Well, like
ping and
in
let
the newer versions or with some
other players-
plugins for the
yeah, this
the
sounds
HUD.
like an excellent exercise that I would like to take on. So I know this might be inside of the thread for this Twitch stream. I'll bookmark it and
we have
I'll
this
look into
we have this
this.
doc. It's shared with
yeah.
you,
So
it's
this
highlighted.
is something that I can't necessarily answer right here on the spot, but it's something that I would like to look into and maybe try and put something else out there as a tutorial down the road, maybe.
You know anything about this one?
So what does it say?
Would you use event dispatchers with trigger volumes to make leap motion interactivity with 3D widgets?
I have not worked with leap motion interactivity too much. I don't see why you couldn't. Would you use event dispatchers with trigger volumes? So the leap motion, I want to play with the leap motion
I
actually.
have one. I'll bring it in tomorrow.
I need to play with that actually.
They were on
So,
sale from like HP website for like $20 one day.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with the collision. Have you played with it at all?
A little bit.
So I don't know how if there's collision around your hands. Like
There
when you
is
interact or something.
in the default leap motion plugin. Basically, when you pull your hands up, you have like these little sausage fingers. I'm serious. They look like little sausages. You have these little tiny
That's
sausage
awesome.
fingers, right? And
Yeah.
there's like a joint here, and a joint there, and then
Okay.
so you can do stuff like I think Nick Whiting had one where he was trying to. Like he had his hands together like this, and then the particles were going down. They were GPU particles, so they were
Mhm.
bouncing off his hands. He
Okay.
was cupping them like that, and then the particles would spill out like you were holding water in your hand or something like that. So
Yeah.
I can bring mine, or I think Nick Donaldson has one. There's a couple floating around the
Okay.
studio.
Yeah, I
we
can try and play
check
with
it
that.
out.
But from not having played with it, my initial inclination would be that if there is collision on the fingers, I would put a collision box around your 3D widget so that you wouldn't even need to use event dispatchers at that point. When the collision overlaps, you could just do it
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
true.
So
Yeah,
here's your
an
collision
overlap
box
event.
around your widget. As your fingers are going towards it, probably on overlap, like do once or something and then reset it so that you're not putting multiple fingers into the box and triggering it multiple times. But that would probably be my first test to try and see if I could get it to work.
This last one right here, will this lobby system be working with
Yes.
Steam? So this is actually a funny story. We couldn't get the game to work for an entire day. And you know why the game wouldn't work for the entire day? Somebody was logged into Steam.
Somebody wasn't logged into Steam. That was the thing.
I
He
know,
was
that was-
logged
that
into
was-
Steam and I wasn't. So I know Ryan, this is something that Ryan was working on as well. I don't know the timeline on this, but we could show this really quickly. If you have worked at all with any networking projects, you know that you have to go into your config file, you have to go into the default engine INI, open that up, and then specify your online subsystem. So right here we have the online subsystem. They're looking at a way to do this in editor from what I
Ooh,
had
that would be
heard.
nice.
Everything else you do in the editor, but for this particular thing, defining your online subsystem, you have to come to here to do it. So right now we are using Steam for the purposes of that project that you're looking at. So if I was connected to Steam right now and I loaded up this game, you would see my little name pop up. And for Steam, it uses this Steam ID right here. So it has like a sample ID that you can use to test your Steam products. And whenever I'm connected, Sam's always like, hey, you're playing Space War, huh? Because that's the name of the game.
I was like, what game are you playing? What game is this? This
Some
sounds
new
awesome.
game on Steam. But yeah, this is where you would do it. You'd need, and we're going to break this down as well. If you wanted to do just LAN, you would set your online subsystem, the default platform service here, to null instead of Steam. But if you were doing like Google Play or whatever else, you would put that in there.
What was our other one set to for the Gear
No.
VR Pro? It's
No.
a null? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I tried to
okay.
fix that, but
Okay.
if it was set to Steam, then you're not connected to Steam.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, wait,
that was the
is it
first thing I
because I'm
checked. I was like,
connected to?
no,
Okay,
not
all right.
connected.
I'm all about the low hanging fruit, so you know.
So yeah, this is again part of the process that we're going to go through, and this is covered in the multiplayer shootout documentation as well. That you have to do this. So this project is set up ready for Steam. So let's see, what else was there? Time on the tutorial project being available. So you want to talk about the VR, and I guess I could give timeline on the multiplayer project here.
Yeah, I mean the VR stuff. I mean, this is something that we took on. That's just kind of one of our epic Friday. You're basically seeing the results of one day worth of our work. It's about 8 or 9 hours worth of time. What I'm going to be doing for the VR stuff is doing things like material switches. So if you're on the, where's my phone at? If you're on the Gear, you'll use slightly less complex materials than if you were on the desktop PC. Adjusting post-processing settings, like making sure that MSAA is turned on this device, and then you get the temporal AA on the PC. Setting up your levels of detail, you know, like having a high-res version on the PC versus a lower-res version for the VR or for on the phone. So things like that. Figuring out how you can set up your game once, and then using all of our built-in tools, because we have a lot of built-in tools to control who gets what, or to control the experience on which device you happen to be playing on. And while we have a lot of this documented, I don't think there's enough documentation that shows kind of how you get from point A to point B, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on this particular project.
And to Sam's point there, that's kind of the same thing with the multiplayer stuff. We have projects, we have some samples out there for multiplayer, but we don't have an point A to point B and setting everything up. So the video series, probably the project that you saw there, just the front end stuff, I'd like to migrate this over to the project that Sam and I have been working on in VR so that we have this inside of that project. But this project on itself, I don't have an exact timeline on the release. I would probably say before 4.10. That is it's on my plate to do in the next couple weeks. So it's just ironing out the rest of the kinks, getting everything working, getting our subject matter experts to kind of sign off and review and make sure that we're doing everything, you know, in the best way possible.
We're also giving you the correct information,
right?
To make sure that you guys get the correct way by the Epic developers on how to set things up properly. And that's something that we're really striving to make sure that we can give to you guys, so that you don't read a document and you're like, well, I tried it this one way, but the actual opposite works. So, you know, we're trying very, very hard to make sure that you guys can get top quality documentation on everything. Although that doesn't really answer an approximate date. I can't really say, because this is something Wes and I work on in our spare time, or if they're like, hey, you guys have something that's near completion, you need a little bit of time to finish it, and then this would be something like that. But this again is something that, you know, we get a little bit of extra time here or there, or we're at a lull or something, and you know, we're like, okay, you know what, I got a couple hours, let me see what I can knock out on this particular project. So we got some more questions coming up here. Will you be able to use Steam's avatar for their in-game avatar with your online system?
I actually haven't tested this yet. I know that when Steam is enabled, when I have Steam up on my machine and I connect,
I can see you.
You see me connecting. I don't know.
I see what he's connecting, and I see what he's playing, and I can also see how long he's been playing it.
Yeah, that's something I can experiment with. So I'm glad you guys brought that up. We can see how I could access that and pull that into the actual avatar that is displayed. So it's something that I will look into. Let's say, will we be able to show how to leave the VR stuff out?
I mean, this is actually a pretty easy question. If you don't have VR enabled, you won't see VR. Literally, like, if we can make the entire project have everything with VR in it, and if you don't have your VR headset enabled, you just won't see VR. You know, so there's nothing that you... In fact, developing for VR would actually be beneficial, because it's going to mean that you're going to have to be very, very careful with how you use your materials, how you use your number of sections, material IDs, number of material IDs, how you use your vertex counts, all that stuff. So actually designing for VR could actually help you out in non-VR platforms, because you have to make sure that it runs at that target frame rate. And, you know, if you can get the quality that you want and achieve the frame rate that you want. And when you go to view it on a non-VR device, you're not going to have to worry about anything. It will just work. Could you tell us more about how you would use the bump offset node? So bump offset is our way of saying parallax mapping. And actually, thanks to Ryan Brooks, one of our very, very talented senior technical artists here, you now have the parallax occlusion mapping on steroids, basically. It will do steep parallax mapping with shadows, with self-shadowing, all types of stuff. There's a bunch of white papers on it. That's a brand new node that you can actually find in the material functions library. Just type in parallax. But basically what it does is it takes a copy. I'm gonna do this I'm gonna broad stroke this one because I could go into a lot of detail. But so basically what it's doing is it's as something goes further away from you, your lines of parallel, they'll converge. So what this is doing is inside your pixel shader, it's basically rendering stuff in steps like this. And it's saying, at this lowest step, I'm going to put it, go like this. I'm going to put it very far back here. And I'm going to make it very small, and then I'm going to have another layer that's slightly bigger and slightly bigger and slightly bigger, and as it comes out here, it's larger than it is down here. So basically what you're going to be doing is you're giving an optical illusion that you're adding all of this depth, when actually there's no depth there, it's just all done inside of the pixel shader. Now, you think, oh man, this is going to be great, I can get rid of all this geometry. Well, no, you can't. Because doing something like this requires some texture lookups, it requires some ray marching. It's very expensive to do, and in some instances, probably it would be cheaper to do this with actual physical geometry because it's infinitely more expensive to render a pixel than it is to render a vertex. It's super cheap on modern hardware to render a vertice. It can get quite expensive to render a pixel. Especially if you're doing something like parallax occlusion mapping or bump offset mapping. They're the same term used interchangeably. In that particular case, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to use the profiler to see if you can afford the extra instruction lookups and things like that. So again, check it out. It's called parallax occlusion mapping or steep parallax occlusion mapping if you're trying to do a Google search for it. And then in our engine, we have the node. It's called bump offset. And it's just a way to add extra depth to your 3D model as material without actually physically adding any extra geometry or anything like that.
Just going to see if we had time for any more here.
Oh, yeah, let's see what else we got here.
Some of these we kind of already answered.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm not quite sure.
The one about reprojection, I'm not sure about. I do know that you can attach stuff to the HUD now, and it should be following you around. I do believe that went in 4.9. I can verify with Mr. Whiting, but that was something that I wanted to do it because I wanted to experiment putting that VR nose on the headset to see if it could help have your user better grounded in the world to help reduce simulation sickness. But they told me to hold off until like 4.9 or 4.10. I can't remember what it was now because there was some weird way that you had to do it beforehand. So, but I haven't tried recently, so. This one about rotations, about relative and absolute, I'm not 100% sure about because I don't ever do anything that messes with the opposite. I did it once and I gave myself very bad simulation sickness, so I don't ever do it anymore.
Yeah, I haven't experimented with it too much either. I was only, if I open up that other project, just using the camera manager to get the location and rotation to allow you to shoot, see where you're shooting. That's to the extent
I think that's the most
experimented with.
Extensive thing that I've used it. And it's not to say that you can't, it's just every time I've tried to offset the VR camera or do something funky with the camera, I end up giving myself simulation sickness. So I just leave the camera alone.
Yeah, I haven't tried to set. I don't know if you can. I don't see why you couldn't do it. But I haven't tried to.
You can, but I don't know why you would want to.
Unless you want
unless you're like trying to teleport
at something.
But you wouldn't. That kind of goes against the loose rules of VR.
There could be some kind of key event that you want your players to look at. You could probably do it through a cutscene or something, maybe.
Yeah, you could have it through a cutscene.
Maybe. Let's see.
We've got it.
I don't think there's. What are we on time?
It's
right at the mark.
Yeah, we're almost there.
There's a couple of requests.
Yeah.
these are best. So it says, can they add a tweaked HMD plugin suitable for playing TV monitor? This is probably something that's suitable for the forums to post to get response there. I can't necessarily say yes or no in this.
That's a Nick Whiting question.
It's an excellent question. I can't give a yes or no here.
I don't want to give you guys the wrong information and say that we can or we can't, because I just don't know.
Yeah, one of those guys will probably jump in and we can direct them to this post in the forums if it doesn't already exist.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that looks like we've answered everything that we could. If we weren't able to get to your question, or you come up with a question right at the end, and you're like, oh, I should have asked this. Please post to the forums. I'm on the VR forums all the time. I know Wes is on the Blueprint and UMG stuff. So, ask in one of those two places where appropriate, and we will get to you. So, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. Again, this is something that's work in progress and something that's coming down the pipe, just kind of giving you an idea of the direction that we're going. If there's other things that you would like to see included as part of these, feel free to post those on the forums. We could try to investigate and work those into our projects as we're working on them now. So feel free to try and get those in there, and we'll take a look at them.
And don't forget, we read the forums a lot. So if you guys have something you want to see, just like Wes said, put it on there, and it might be something where, like, you know what, that's a freaking great idea. We never thought about that. Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger on it. So, but that's it for me.
That's it for me as well. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thanks for showing up. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.